Welcome to the Deep Dive. We unpack compelling sources to find, well, the most important insights for you. Today, we're diving into a really powerful ancient account from the Bible. We're focusing on a key chapter in the book of Ezra. Our mission for this deep dive is really to explore this historical narrative and, uncover some practical wisdom, some real encouragement for our faith and actions today.
Yeah, and we're looking at events around the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. This is after the exile. And specifically how external forces and, well, divine providence intersected. It's actually quite surprising.
Okay, let's jump right in then. So the scene is set. The
Mhm.
people, they're back in their land. They're working hard rebuilding the temple. But it's not easy going. They're facing challenges, some pushback, definitely scrutiny. Questions have even been formally raised with the ruling authorities.
Right, and our source tells us King Darius gets involved here. He responds to these inquiries by ordering a search of the royal archives. He basically wants to check if there were any past decrees about Jerusalem and its temple building.
And this is where it gets, well, fascinating. They actually find something significant. A scroll is discovered. It's deep within the palace records in a place called Ecbatana. And it confirms that King Cyrus, years before, had indeed issued a decree, specifically to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem.
And think about the detail in that old decree. I mean, it wasn't vague at all. It specified the dimensions, 60 cubits high, 60 cubits wide, and the materials. 3 rows of great stones, a row of new timber, specific stuff.
Yeah, and it even said the expenses should come from the king's own house, his treasury.
And get this, even that the sacred gold and silver vessels Nebuchadnezzar had looted, that they should be restored to the temple.
So Darius finds the scroll, and what's really remarkable is he doesn't just acknowledge it, he doesn't hesitate or try to downplay it, he powerfully upholds it. He issues his own decree, telling the local officials like Tatnai, the guy who raised the questions basically, leave the Jewish builders completely alone.
And it goes even further than just leave them alone. Darius decrees that royal funds, specifically from the tribute collected right there in that region, must be used to cover the entire cost of the building work. And listen to this part. Without delay, he wanted it done quickly.
That's unbelievable. Funding the construction, sure, but then he also orders that all the necessary supplies for the worship itself.
Yeah.
Young bulls, rams, lambs for burnt offerings, plus wheat, salt, wine, oil, all of it to be given to the priests in Jerusalem daily, without fail, like clockwork.
Daily. And his stated reason for all this royal support. So the Jews could offer sacrifices to their God and, importantly, pray for the life of the king and his sons. He even adds this incredibly severe penalty. Anyone who dares alter his decree. Timber pulled from their own house, they'd be hanged on it, and their house turned into a ruin, a dunghill.
Wow, that's serious backing. You don't mess with that decree.
Exactly. And it definitely got results.
It certainly seems so. The account says the officials, Tatnai included, they obeyed Darius's decree speedily, right away. So the elders of the Jews, they just continued building, and they prospered. The text even mentions they had help from the prophets Haggai and Zechariah who were, encouraging them along the way.
And so they finished it. They finished the temple. It says it was completed according to the commandment of God, yes, but also these decrees of Cyrus, Darius, and even Artaxerxes mentioned later. It was finished on the 3rd day of the month, Adar, in the 6th year of King Darius's reign, a specific date.
And what do you do after such a huge monumental task is finally completed? You celebrate. The chapter, it culminates in these really powerful celebrations. First, the dedication of the temple. It was done with great joy, marked by significant sacrifices, 100 bullocks, 200 rams, 400 lambs, plus 12 male goats as a sin offering for all 12 tribes of Israel. Huge numbers.
Yeah, really significant. And then the priests and the Levites were formally organized again, assigned their roles for service in the temple, putting things back in order according to the law of Moses.
And finally, the people kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. Then the 7-day feast of unleavened bread. All of it, the text emphasizes, with immense joy.
And there's this interesting note, too. It wasn't just those who had physically returned from captivity who joined in. It also included others who had separated themselves from the practices of the surrounding peoples, the uncleanness of the heathen, as it says, specifically to seek the God of Israel.
So a broader community coming together.
Exactly. And here's this incredible summary statement right at the end. The Lord had made them joyful, and remarkably, had turned the heart of the king of Assyria, referring to Darius here, to strengthen their hands in the work of the house of God.
Wow. I mean, that historical account is just packed with layers, isn't it? So let's unpack that. What does this ancient story mean for you today? When you look at this, what immediately jumped out about how God seems to operate?
Well, for me, it's the absolutely stunning fact that God uses King Darius. I mean, a pagan king, head of this massive empire, certainly not a follower of the God of Israel. God uses him not just to remove obstacles, but to lavishly provide for his purposes. From the royal treasury, no less. What this really highlights, I think, is that God isn't limited. He's not confined to working only through people who share your faith or, only within religious
All
structures.
right. That's huge. Help and resources can literally come from the most unexpected places. So think about your own life. Maybe God might use your boss, maybe a government program, maybe someone you'd never expect to open a door or provide for something He's called you to do. It's such a powerful reminder to, well, keep your eyes open and trust in His broad reach, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you connect that to the persistence we see from the Jewish builders. They faced challenges, right?
Yeah.
They were questioned, hassled,
That-
but they kept building. And arguably, because they persisted in the work God had given them, the provision eventually showed up,
Mm.
and spectacularly from the king himself.
That really encourages obedience, doesn't it? To keep going even when the resources aren't immediately visible, trusting that God will supply them maybe from a completely unexpected source and at exactly the right time. Your faithfulness in the work can actually attract the provision needed.
Yeah, definitely. And it also speaks volumes about the importance of supporting the work God is doing around us. Look at Darius. He wasn't just passively permitting the temple building, he was actively resourcing it.
Mm.
So when you see a mission or a ministry or some work that's clearly aligned with God's purposes today, supporting it, well, whether that's financially or maybe practically with your skills or through prayer, it isn't just a nice thing to do. It's a tangible act of obedience. It strengthens the hands of those doing the building, just like Darius did.
That's a great point. And they didn't just finish the building, they celebrated. You mentioned the dedication, the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. These were joyful, but also commanded sacred rhythms they returned to.
Exactly. Finishing what God calls you to do is vital, yes, but taking the time to mark that completion, to dedicate the work back to Him, and to return to those sacred rhythms of worship and community celebration, that's crucial too. It reinforces the value of the work, doesn't it? It reminds everyone of God's faithfulness in making it happen, and brings a joy that strengthens faith for whatever challenge comes next. These kinds of rhythms, they ground us in His bigger story and His ongoing faithfulness.
Mm. This deep dive into Ezra Chapter 6, it really shows us a beautiful picture. God's providence working through surprising means, the sheer power of persistent obedience in His work, and that incredible joy that comes from finally finishing and celebrating His faithfulness.
It's a story that encourages us profoundly, I think, to trust that God can provide for His purposes from absolutely anywhere. And to know that your obedience, whether you're building or supporting or celebrating, it's a vital part of His grand plan unfolding right now.
So, as we wrap up, maybe think about something God has called you to, some task, some mission, some area of obedience. Are you actively watching for how He might provide, even from the most unexpected sources?